Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Quirky Inspirations Podcast. Now, why Quirky Inspirations? I've been described as quirky a number of times, and if you know me at all, then yeah, it's probably a fairly good description. Inspirations, because all of our guests have wonderfully inspiring stories. And I'll be honest, most of them are a bit quirky as well, which is why we get on so well. Now, we're about to meet a very interesting gentleman whom I had the pleasure of working with on Your Words Have Power last year. Dan Clouser, I'm not even going to attempt to do the introduction. I'm going to let him introduce himself, because that way you get a flavour of Dan right from the start. Dan, tell us a bit more about you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks, Wendy, for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So who is Dan? So I'll go back a little bit. And Dan was a guy who ran a youth sports organization, nonprofit organization for 30 years. And then in 2019, felt a bit of a calling that it was time to close that chapter of my life and start a new chapter of my life, which initially I did not embrace. But I definitely felt a calling that it was time to start to write more. I'd already published one book at that point. I was in the process of adding 10 chapters to that book. Just really felt this calling from above to use my words, my written words and my spoken words to impact and inspire more people. So I kind of got the inspiration at that point to follow in my mother's footsteps to an extent. She had actually taken a 1967 Plymouth Valiant back in the mid 80s, took the back seat out of it, put a sheet of plywood in there and a mattress, turned it into a quasi RV and traveled around the country, volunteering at different places, working if she felt she was short on money, and just reconnecting with old friends and family and meeting new friends. So I ran the idea by my wife, hey, how about if we do what mom did and sell our house and all of our stuff and buy an RV and travel around the country? And initially she thought I should probably be institutionalized. But after some coercing and just, letting her work through, her own process as well, she agreed to do it. And it's going on 3 years. It was August of 2020 when we embarked on this journey. So this August will be 3 years that we've been on the road. And I did republish that book that I was working on and published another book since then. I'm working on a children's book right now that's actually being written as though our dog is the author from his perspective of our travels. And that should be out in March of 2023 here. And also working on volume 2 of my most recent series of books, The Journey of My Mother's Son, which is also my podcast title and that sort of stuff. So pretty complex to have gotten to where we are today.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just cogitating on how I would have felt if my husband had said, let's sell up everything, leave our roots and the road. I think it would have taken me a little while to go, what? But yeah, wow. So, I mean, I know that you have this tremendous sense of freedom around this.
Yeah.
And can you amplify a bit more about that sense of freedom for us?
Just we're able to live life on our own terms. Society tells us so many times to jump on this hamster wheel and just keep running until we're completely exhausted. But for us, it's literally our own terms. I write when I want to write, when I have time to write. I enjoy podcasting and telling, helping to tell people's stories, those people that we've met both in person on the road or virtually. I've had you on my show, and I love telling those stories. But again, that's also on my terms. I can kind of schedule it when it's convenient for me. There's no one telling me that it has to get done at a particular time or, out there. Obviously there is, the component, once the show's recorded, you got to produce it, you got to get it out there, that sort of thing. But again, it's really, my terms, my schedule. If we want to get up early and go watch the sunrise over the beach, we can do that. If we want to sleep in, we can do that as well. So, the freedom part of it is, pretty amazing. I mean, and it's not, we do have a bit of a schedule. I'm in the process of doing a book signing tour right now. So there's definitely, times and places that we need to be at certain aspects. But again, even that, I'm setting that schedule ahead of time, and then it's just adhering to it. There's no one telling me, these are the places you have to go. It's me being able to do it. So that sense of freedom is pretty special for sure.
As you're talking, I'm thinking, again, I'm thinking about all the things that we take for granted, as in when we've got roots, we've got a house, we've got an address, we've got somewhere that the postman can go to, we've got somewhere where we have a fixed abode that, should certain people in authority wish to get hold of us, they know how to get hold of us. Because I'm thinking also that when back in the UK, if somebody is picked up by the police and they have the address and they're homeless, it goes down as no fixed abode. And there's so much stigma attached to that, because we're used to having 4 walls and a seat and a roof. So on a very practical note, how do you handle your mail? How do you connect with the powers that be?
So we have a domicile address, which we use in Florida. We changed, we're originally from Pennsylvania, but once we started this journey, our one daughter had actually gotten us a book that was titled, again, I'll probably mess up the exact title, but something to the effect of a beginner's guide to living in an RV full time, or something to that effect. And it was a very helpful book, because we never did any of this beforehand. We did not camp. The first time I ever drove an RV was the day I drove it off the lot. So it was very helpful. And one of the things they mentioned in there is that for tax purposes, the 3 states in the US that are most friendly for domicile addresses are South Dakota, Texas, or Florida. And we still have family in Florida, so that seemed to be a good choice. So we actually use my one aunt's address in Florida as our domicile. And just about everything we do is online as far as paying bills and that sort of stuff. So the majority of mail that's coming to our domicile, her address, is literally junk mail. But she will, once we're in a spot for, a couple weeks at a time and we're going to be there for a while, we'll just reach out to her and she'll package up what we have there and send it to where we're at. And, we get it and we go through it. And if we have an app, the US Postal Service has an app that we can actually see the mail that's coming through. So if we do see something that is actually, time sensitive or something like that, we'll reach out to her and say, hey, can you open that piece of mail and take a picture of it and send it to us? Or, we're going to be at a spot, just send that one piece ahead for us. And, we've been able to work that way pretty well. But outside of our situation, there are actually a lot of services for full-time RVers that offer the same as what my aunt does for us.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, because I was just having little practical thoughts. I mean, if you're sending off for parcels and things, where do you get them sent to? So yeah, obviously if you're in a campground for any length of time, could you maybe get FedEx in your neck of the woods? FedEx could deliver to the campground, presumably, could they?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's little logistics thing that we have to work through with like this book signing tour, because we're in an RV, so space and weight is limited. So it's not like I can order 1,000 books and cart them around in the RV with us. So It's a little bit of a juggling act as far as when we're going to replenish books. We were just at a campground in Galveston, and we knew we were going to be there for a couple days. So I got some books shipped to us there that arrived the third day that we had actually been there. So you can, packages and stuff like that, if you're getting an Amazon package or something like that, as long as you know where you're going to be, you can work around that pretty easily. So we've really had no issues at all when it comes to, needing to get something that, that we're waiting on.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's funny how many people ask that question, though. It's like, where do you get your mail? How do you get your mail? It's amazing how many people actually do ask that question.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking also from a perspective, certainly in Australia, if you are applying for anything, they have what they call a 100-point ID check. The driver's license, presumably that's attached to your domicile, is it?
Yes. Yep. We have Florida driver's licenses now, and our RV is registered in the state of Florida as well, which actually we just saw our RV renewal, registration renewal come through the mail for us now, but we'll actually be back in Florida by the time it has to get renewed. So we won't get that sent to us ahead of time or anything like that, but we know it's there waiting on us.
Right. Yeah. So, because I mean, there's that, and there's also they require a utilities bill. And I'm thinking, how would you get around that? I mean, it's tough enough now because most of the utilities send through emails, and the old-fashioned people want to see a physical copy. And I go, well, if I printed it out, would you believe me? No, we need to see the original. Well, I'm sorry, but we live in a paperless society. So
yeah. So we don't have that. Obviously, we don't have any utility bills. So basically, all we have is our driver's license and passport. So we've never had any issues outside of that at this point.
Sorry, I'm just getting hit up in the minutiae. But no, I mean, you said that you had never driven an RV until you'd driven this fella off the lot. I mean, how big are we talking?
It's a 33-foot Class C, and for people who don't know what the differences are in RVs. So a Class A are the ones that have the straight front, kind of look like a bus. A Class C looks kind of more like a van and has a bunk above the driver's area as well. So that's what we have, a 33-foot Class C. And we do not tow a vehicle, which we've been able to work around as well. That was one of the things that, without ever driving an RV before, I knew there was going to be a learning curve to begin with. So I didn't want to add to that learning curve by, dragging a vehicle behind us as well. So we decided that we would probably put that off for a little while. But honestly, as of now, it's not really in our plans. We've been able to work around it. We've been in spots where we've been able to use family members' cars if we're, back in Pennsylvania. Actually, even when we were in Galveston, some friends of ours allowed us to use their Jeep because their wife didn't use it a whole lot. And then Uber. We use Uber quite a bit. We just used Uber today here in Houston to go somewhere, to go to church this morning and Ubered back. So we've been able to work around. And if we know we're going to be at a spot for a long time, my wife has an incredible knack to figure out literally what we need for that period of time without having to go anywhere. And again, if we do get in a pinch, we can always Uber, or we've been in campgrounds where public transportation buses have been actually relatively close, and we've used public transportation as well. So when we look at other RVers and the process they have to go through to hook and unhook a vehicle when they get into a campground, we just kind of look at each other and know what, we're okay the way we are. We're making this work. And quite frankly, it's just another expense at that point, because you're still putting wear and tear on those tires. If you're flat towing, you're still paying insurance on the vehicle that you're mostly towing around and not using that much. So for now, we're okay. Maybe that'll change in the future, but for now, we're okay without towing. We've been able to figure it out.
Well, I know that I used to go camping. I say camping. We used to go and stay in a campsite in Switzerland. they had caravans with awnings and things that used to go and hire. But there were also always RV big fellas, I think, or what you would call Class A's. And on the back, they had little smart cars on a ledge, which is then what they toddled around. I mean, you can imagine these. I have no idea conceptually how long they were, but the thought of taking one of those up a mountain pass was the heebie-jeebies. I mean, presumably you'd need to have an HGV license or something like that, a truck license to drive one of those. But anyway, I'm just getting.
I don't know how it is in Europe or Australia, but here in the US, shockingly, you do not need a CDL to drive any type of RV because it is considered a recreational vehicle, which is both good and bad. So, especially when you see some people in their 70s and 80s getting out of some of these real big Class A's. But for now, that's the way it is. There's no special license required for an RV. And literally, we had a 2-hour kind of training session to go over all of our stuff in the RV, and that was pretty much it. None of that involved actually being behind the wheel. It was just learning where your electric hookups were, where your sewer hookups, your water hookups, all that sort of stuff. How to get the slides in and out, the jacks up and down, all that sort of stuff. But YouTube, anything we found that we've needed in a pinch, YouTube has been an incredible asset for us, because it really is a fountain of information if you need it.
Have you uploaded anything onto YouTube about your experiences?
We did a little renovation in our Class C this past summer, where we took the dinette out and took a bunk out in the back because it was something that we never really used anyway. And it's just the three of us. When I say the three of us, my wife, myself, and the dog. So we actually did a little video of the renovation of what we did. And it's funny. All my podcasts and all my other stuff that's up on YouTube, that renovation video is by far and wide the most viewed video that I have on YouTube. So we'll do some of those. And we're not much of like the vlogging RVer sort of thing. We'll do some. We just uploaded the video of our first week down at the Dream Center in Beaumont, where we're volunteering. And we'll do some stuff like that, but that's not really my cup of tea. It's more putting my podcast and that sort of stuff. But it is funny that the one RV, one of the few RV videos that we have up there is actually the most viewed. Again, by probably like 10 times.
It's got visual interest. I mean, with the best one in the world, podcast interviews, it's two people.
Yep. And
however animated we can get, and we can get animated, there's something about, particularly if it's somebody else's life, there's that sort of voyeuristic element to it. Again, how would I deal with that? Yeah. Which is the conversation we've already had, thinking, how would you deal with the mail? How would you deal with living vicariously through somebody else? I think it's a brilliant idea. So you've got the books that you've written. You were talking about the one that you've added another 10 chapters to. Tell us about that book.
So that book was called The Beauty of a Diamond Through the Eyes of a Coach. And it really
hang on.
chronicles...
Well, say that again. Say that again nice and slowly, please.
The Beauty of a Diamond Through the Eyes of a Coach.
Right.
And it talks about my 30 years of coaching baseball and softball and running a youth nonprofit organization. The last 10 chapters, not all of the last 10 chapters, but a handful of them actually talk about that journey before the journey. What led me to decide to leave the organization and do what we're doing today. And as much as when you look at the cover and you hear the title, people think that it's a book about baseball or softball or coaching a sport. It really is. There's a lot of life lessons in there. There's a lot of leadership lessons in there. So you certainly don't have to be just a baseball or softball or any type of sport coach. If you're in a leadership role, it's probably a pretty good book for you to check out. And
We'll make sure that all the details are in the show notes when we pop it up on YouTube, because it does sound as though, I mean, I'm fascinated already, and I put my hand up to the fact that I know nothing about baseball, nothing about softball. Sports is not my thing. However, those life lessons I'm really looking forward to hearing about.
Yeah, and that really is what it's about. Because my whole philosophy as a coach wasn't just about winning and losing. It was about teaching those life lessons through the game. And one of the biggest blessings that Sandy and I have had throughout this journey is being able to reconnect with some of my old players who are, literally scattered throughout the country. So, to connect with guys I had coached, 20 some years ago in Arizona, or even when we were down in Galveston, we actually were able to get together with one of my old players and a set of one of my old players' parents as well. And, hearing what our organization meant to them as parents, and what we were doing for their son at that time. And then, hearing about, my player and what he's doing today. It's been an incredible blessing. And, not always as a coach or a teacher do you get to see the fruits of the seeds that you planted so many years ago. And I think sometimes a lot of coaches and teachers wonder, if they're wasting their time, or if they're, if anybody's listening to them, because they don't get to see, the fruits of their labor. And there have been times in my life where I asked those same questions. Was this really worth it, or did I just waste all this time and no one was listening? And to be able to reconnect with these guys and young women has answered that question, that yes, they were listening, and they're making an incredible impact out there in the world in their own way today. So that's been amazing for us, for sure. And the second book that just came out this past May is called The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1, which is also the title of my podcast. And that really chronicles the first 18 months of our journey on the road. Actually, even probably the 4 or 5 months prior to our journey, actually probably even 6 months prior to our journey. And it's really written, the subtitle of it is Many Random Thoughts from the Road. And that's literally what it is. So there's, chapters in there, talking about the process before we actually started, selling the house, and just, having faith over fear that everything was going to work out, going through that whole process in the midst of COVID. We were buying our RV the same day that the state of Pennsylvania was issuing their shutdown orders, which was not the way we planned things to go. It was sell the house, buy the RV, not have a mortgage payment, and an RV sitting in the yard for a couple months. That was not the plan. But yet we were sitting there, and there's just this enormous sense of peace over us as well. Hey, this is the right thing. Just, keep taking one step at a time, and everything is going to work out. And then talking about, whether it was a walk on the beach, or seeing a sunrise on the beach, or a sunset on the beach, or, a hike in Arizona, or a hike in Utah, that inspired me to write. So it's the type of book that you could read. You can open up and read, chapter 12 to start, and then go back and read chapter 3, and then go back and read, chapter 20, or whatever the case is. Because I have the date that I wrote it on in there. So it's kind of set up a bit like a journal, but not necessarily a journal per se.
Yeah. Have you got some pictures of your wonderful experiences in there as well?
Not in there,
right.
But volume 4 of the Journey of My Mother's Son will actually be a picture book. It'll be strictly pictures with small descriptions of places that we've been to. So that'll be full color coffee table type book.
Because you must have seen some wonderful sights. I mean, you mentioned Arizona and Utah, and I mean, I've been to Sedona. I've been to the Grand Canyon from the south rim, and walked halfway down. I wasn't allowed to go all the way down because I couldn't go down and back up in one day, because they don't allow you to do that. And I was very fortunate to see both sunset and sunrise. Oh.
Yeah, we've, Yellowstone was incredible. People ask us all the time, what's been your favorite place? And we cannot answer it. We cannot answer it. We'll name one and they'll be, oh, but then there's this place. We were in New England in the fall, which was absolutely beautiful, stunning. The Pacific Ocean, the first time we got to the Pacific Ocean in Long Beach, Washington, was breathtaking. The Grand Tetons were incredible, and just so many places. Key West was beautiful. Even here, Galveston. We love Galveston. Love being able to be right there on the Gulf of Mexico and being able to see the sunrise over the Gulf. So we've been able to see the sunrise over the Gulf in Galveston. We've been able to see the sunset over the Gulf in Clearwater and Largo, Florida. So it's pretty amazing when you kind of think about those two perspectives. It's the same body of water, but at one side you're looking one direction, the other side you're looking the other direction, and you can see both. And then just talking about the Gulf in general, like Destin, Florida, the beach is white as snow. Literally as white as snow, and the water is crystal blue as the background on your screen right now. The water in Destin is, and just so many places in between.
And the fact that because you're actually physically driving there, you get more of a sense of the vastness, the vastness of the creation around you. And I'm just thinking of, I don't know the geography of the States very well, but the bits that I have seen and those archetypal pictures of the long straight road with the odd bit of cactus. I remember driving from Phoenix up to Sedona, and it was just mile upon mile of rocky desert with the odd cactus sticking up, and thinking, oh, hello. And it's like if I were to drive from Perth over to the eastern states, going through the Nullarbor Desert. It's called the Nullarbor very imaginatively, because if you've got any Latin behind you, it literally means null arbor, no trees.
Wow.
And good straight road. And you've got the danger of falling asleep because there's nothing to look at apart from the odd rock thing. And if you're, depending on where you are, you might get brumbies, which are the wild horses, or you might get camels crossing your path. We have camel colonies, now feral, that were brought over by the Afghans in the early 1900s when they were laying the railroad from Adelaide up to Darwin, right through the middle. And also when they did the Indian Pacific. So we've got two major railways, one going east-west and one going north-south.
Okay.
I really fancy doing both of those, actually, and not having to drive it. But the vastness of the country and that sense of, when I was in Sedona, I had a little hike up one of the I think it was back at Cathedral Rock. And I was up there just after sunrise. And you got tremendous vista. And I've got a thing for red rocks. I love red rocks. Hey, I've landed in Australia just as well. We're one big red rock. And the sense of perspective of this one person and this vastness of creation. And what is man that you're mindful of him? And you go, wow, this is incredible. Yeah. And it puts life back into perspective, doesn't it?
It sure does. It sure does. And Sedona is absolutely beautiful. Some of the most incredible sunsets we've seen were in Arizona in general. And Sedona was no different. If I tell people all the time, if you're in a tough spot, get yourself out into nature, and it will put perspective on things. It will make you understand, how glorious God's creation is in its own right. And it does. It makes you, feel small again, and understand that in the grand scheme of things, all the things that are going on in your little world are not something to really get all that upset about. Like just ratchet it back and understand that just put it into perspective. So it is, I love being able to hear other people talk about that as well, how they can, kind of put things into perspective by, seeing stuff like that as well, because it's just amazing. And one of the things we like to do is get off of the interstate for a little bit as well, and take, a secondary highway. And, that way you're doing maybe 50 miles an hour as opposed to 60, 65. And again, some of the most incredible experiences we've had were completely impromptu, on one of these secondary highways where all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, look, here's a state park. Let's take a break and pull in here. And we pull in and are just in awe of the sights that we got to see, or stopping along Lake Erie to see a sunset, on our way going through Ohio to Michigan, one time. And again, completely impromptu, wasn't part of our agenda, but, turned out to be one of the best experiences that we've had.
Following that intuition.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've been attempting so far this year to do a walk every day. I've missed it twice where are we now, 16 days in. I haven't got it yet today. However, I've got a bush reserve, probably about 10 minutes walk from here. So if I've managed to sort my timetable out, I've managed just over a 4K walk. And I've been tending to do it in a clockwise direction. Well, the other day I thought, why don't I do it the other way around? So as I went in to the reserve, something said, keep going this way. So I went, and there in front of me was an open plain. And I thought, are those stumps? Because I hadn't seen this view before. No, just stop here for a minute. And suddenly up came the heads. There was a mama and a Joey kangaroo. Flipped around to look at me. And I go, hello. It's all right. Stay there. I'm going this way. I'm not going to disturb you. Keep going. And a couple of days later, I saw them again in the same area. And this time they looked directly at me. Morning. Okay, keep going. But the fact that I got to see wild kangaroos not a quarter of an hour from my front door.
Yeah.
This is really precious. What wasn't so precious on Thursday was the fact that I've got a couple of spider bites.
Oh.
Which
it's no fun.
No, it wasn't. I think the little nasty fellow was possibly poisonous from the reaction I got, but mercifully not too bad a reaction. But hey, that's me. But yeah, so I love the opportunity of getting out, and you experience this sort of when you're doing your podcasting. You spend quite a lot of time indoors in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So get out is just so precious, so precious.
Yeah. Even today, because again, I try to walk every day, and we're pretty good at it. And obviously the dog makes sure that I adhere to it. And today we got back, and I was watching TV a little bit, doing a couple things, and I didn't want to walk, and I really wanted to go and take a nap instead. And the dog just kind of kept at me, and was like, no, we're walking. And finally got out there, and once you start moving and the air is going through your lungs, you feel so much better. But it is good to have this little four-legged companion keeping me on my toes to get out there, because there are definitely times where I would prefer not to, but I never regret it once I'm out there. And that was just walking around. That wasn't even a walk in nature. That was just a walk around the RV park that we're in today for just under 3 miles. So but when you can get out in nature, that's a whole different whole different kettle of fish. I mean, it is really, really grounding at that point.
Do you take the dog with you when you're out on a longer walk?
Yeah, him and I have gone, me and him, the longest walk that we've done was a little over 16 miles. That was back in October. I did a 21-mile hike myself that he would have gone on with me, but the weather was a little sketchy. It was supposed to rain most of the day, and it was actually part of a hiking event, an event called Mammoth March that I did in Jersey. So I left him in the RV that day just because of the weather, because he is up in years, and even though he's in great health, I didn't want him out in the rain. And as it turned out, it rained for like 5 minutes on the entire hike. So he wasn't real happy when I got back, because he felt left out. But that's what made me do the 16-mile hike with him a couple weeks later, so that he could get a little taste of what we did.
What's your doggy called?
We've done. His name is Youkilis, and he's named after the Boston Red Sox old third baseman Kevin Youkilis. So we call him Uke for short. I figured it out. I think the two of us have probably walked over 10,000 miles together in his lifetime.
Wow. How old is he now?
He's going to be 14 in March.
Oh.
And he's still, we tell people he's 13 going on 5, because he's got the energy of a 5-year-old puppy for sure. So
lovely.
Hopefully we have a lot more years.
What sort of doggy is he?
He's a golden retriever.
Retriever. Right. They've got a lot of energy.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Take a lot of walking. I can see why you two are good companions.
No doubt. No doubt.
So, Dan, how can we connect with you further?
Everything is on my website, which is thejourneymymotherson.com or danclouser.com if you don't want to type out the whole thing. So a little easier to get there, danclouser.com. Both URLs go to the exact same site. Everything's on there. Links to my podcast, links to my blogs, links to buy autographed copies of my book, as well as a link to the Amazon page that both books are on as well. Anybody wants to, reach out to me for speaking engagements or a book signing event, all that information is on the website as well. So really, if you get to the website, everything's on there. Social media links are there. So everything you need to find out about Dan Clouser is on that website.
Excellent. Do need to know though, can you tell our audience Journey of a Mother's Son?
Yeah, so again, Journey of My Mother's Son, it really comes down to, this whole thing is following in my mom's footsteps and, really kind of keeping her legacy alive. Some of the things that she had done when she had passed away, and we were going through her journals and reading about some of her adventures, stuff that we hadn't, heard about at that point. When we got the idea to do this, that, part of that inspiration to want to blog about it and want to do the podcast and tell stories of the people that we meet was because of that. Because as we read her journals, I just thought, how cool would it have been for Mom to be able to do this in real time and be able to share her travels on social media. So, that's one of the reasons why we do it. And, it's awesome for us to, see people comment about how, our journey is inspiring them and how, they're traveling with us, virtually, and that sort of stuff. So we try to share as many pictures as we can at the places we go to. And, and we want to let people know that, if it's something they want to do, like, just do it. It's not for everybody. So I get that as well. People may have other ways that they want to, connect or, find a deeper spiritual journey. And that's fine. This isn't for everyone. I'm very open to the fact that, we don't live in a cookie cutter world. God gave us all our own free will and our own spirits, our own wants and desires. So, the message that we like to tell everybody is whatever it is that, can keep you grounded or to, give you a deeper spiritual meaning in life, find it and do it. Like I said, society kind of wants to give us this cookie cutter approach that we're supposed to, after high school, go to college, get on the corporate ladder and just, keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's not the way it has to be. There's other ways to live your life, and you can definitely live it much more freer than what society wants to let you know.
I think that original cookie cutter, as you say, or sausage machine, as I sometimes call it, has broken down courtesy of COVID, because so many people have been forced to sit back at home and go, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? So I love the idea that you've got that. I mean, I appreciate that it all happened around that time anyway, but you were going there anyway. You were not part of the Great Resignation. No, you were ahead of the curve. So now, well, as you know a bit about my story in terms of the scripts that we run, the stories that we tell ourselves. And my earliest memory is of the abandonment experience in hospital, how, because nobody came for me, I had the script running in my head that my voice doesn't matter, everybody else's does. Now, the everybody else's does was what prompted me to become a speech pathologist. Unconsciously. I would never change that script. However, the my voice doesn't matter hasn't really worked for me. It's not been that empowering, and it's had some fairly, what's the word I'm going to use? Restricting consequences. So I've now flipped that to my voice does matter, which is why I'm getting out on stages and leading from the front. So my question to you is, Dan, do you have any particular empowering scripts that you are living by? Could call them mottos, mantras, whatever. Can you share some inspiring words that you live by for our audience, please?
I think, living in the moment, if there's one thing that, we've learned through this, because people ask us all the time, what's the toughest thing about this journey? And it is, being away from our family. However, when we are with our family, we're much more intentional, and we're much more aware of the moments that we're in while they're taking place, as opposed to, a few days later or whatever, we're like, wow, that was really special. So I think that ability to, to really live in the moment and to really understand how important this moment is, and that tomorrow is not guaranteed for any of us. And, what we have today is what we have, and to cherish that. And I think, carpe diem, seize the day, is one of the things that I've started to live by more than ever before. I was always a planner. With the organization that I ran, we always had things laid out for months and months in advance, and we still plan, don't get me wrong. But we're much more present than what we ever were. And I think that's something that, again, I think is a little bit of a byproduct of, not for us in particular, but I do see a little bit of a movement of more people being more aware and being more present. And I think that's a positive byproduct of COVID, is that people do understand, and they are taking that, and like you said, where they started questioning, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life, sort of thing. So, for me, that's really it, is to, to live in the moment. And, when we talk about the journey of my mother's son, also to just enjoy that journey. Again, something that I had never done before in the past. It was always about the destination. It was always about, okay, we're leaving here and we're getting to point B at this particular time, and that's the schedule, and not really taking the time to enjoy that. And that, again, that's something that we've done a lot more. And when we get off an interstate, like I was talking about earlier, and take one of those secondary roads, And if it takes us an hour longer to get to where we want to go, it takes us an hour longer to get to where we want to go. It's, it is just what it is. So those are really kind of the two mantras that I think we've really begun to live by, is to enjoy the moment and enjoy the journey.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And I'm just visualizing, as you were saying that, you pulled off and a beautiful lake, which you wouldn't necessarily have seen if you'd gone barreling down the highway. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll get to America again one day. But anyway,
when you do, look us up. We will connect for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Wherever you happen to be. Right, Dan, where in the States are you? Is there an airport reasonably close?
And usually they're relatively close somewhere, some way.
Cool. Well, if you ever do decide to hop on a plane and come over to the other side of the Pacific, you'll need to take another trip 5 hours further on to come and see us in Perth, because you have to come to Perth on purpose.
Gotcha.
But it would be lovely to see you. It really would be lovely to meet you in person. And one day we will, either this side or the other side. Dan, thank you so much. I have loved talking with you. And we will have all of your show notes, how we can connect with you. Oh, quick question. Is your book available on Audible? Have you recorded it yet?
Not yet. That is something that I am looking into, but have not pulled the trigger on it yet.
Cool. Because I mean, I know for myself, when I love listening to Audible books, when you hear it read by the author, there's something so special about it. What was it I was listening to the other day? It was Tiny Habits. Mr. Fogg, can't remember his initials. Anyway, he was saying that he was adding in, he said, you can read the book, but I'm actually going to add a few extra things in here because I'm talking and it's my book and I fancy doing that. So there were extra things on the top, which I thought, oh, that's even better. Anyway, very cool. I digress. Thank you so much, Dan. Love talking with you as always, and we'll be in touch very soon. For now.
Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Bye from us. Bye-bye.